So Cuba was a segregated society, was a Jim Crow society before the revolution, and that during the revolution or after the revolution, there was an edict that we're going to have racial equality, and part of how we have racial equality is we don't talk about race, right? So the good news about that is there's no Ku Klux Klan, right? The bad news is there's no Black Panther Party, right? Because we're just not going to talk about it. So you can't have any organizations organized based on race. So that coupled with the universal economic reforms that we talk about in the film, the universal education, literacy campaigns, jobs programs, that really did a lot, according to Afro-Cuban scholars and activists, did a lot to sort of level the playing field. Didn't do everything, but it did a lot to level the playing field. Neighborhoods became more integrated, and there did become sort of discrediting of racial prejudice in society, and that has been going now in the opposite direction since the 21st century and the introduction of these capitalist reforms. So of course, being from the United States, to me, it's a very important observation to see the relationship between economic competition and racial discrimination. I think among younger Cubans, less of a nostalgia for the revolution, because what they know, if you are a Cuban millennial, Afro-Cuban millennial, what you know is the time since the special period and sort of introduction of economic competition and the increasing significance of dollars coming from the Cuban American community that is concentrated in Miami, that is over 95% white. So I think some of the musical expression that comes from young people in Cuba now is expressing that frustration and the sense that, what we talk about in the film about, this, the focus on unity and the focus on community and the focus on being part of the revolution, I think is much more complicated for young people who see those benefits sort of slipping away. When I show this film, sometimes to majority white audiences, they can be very offended by that opening, and I never meant it to be a sort of read on young white people or to say white people don't know anything about Cuba. It's really to show these are students who are excelling in our educational system, and we have failed them, right? We failed them. They know that they don't know, and they really should know given the quality of education that they're allegedly receiving. So that's, to answer your question, it's really meant to be an intervention in that kind of educational system, which doesn't tell us the whole story about American history, about Latin American history, about the United States' role within the world. People in Cuba are thinking about the embargo every day. We don't have to.